Good afternoon, my name is Liam Nield and this is the MU Review, the place where I talk all things Manchester United in the world of football, and today I'm here to talk about Manchester United's 2-0 win at Turf Moor, our first ever victory over Burnley away from home in the Premier League era. Obviously that's mostly down to the fact that Burnley have only spent about 3 seasons combined, including this one, in the Premier League, but that's neither here nor there. A huge result for United in our pursuit for the top 4 in the Premier League. Obviously, with us advancing to the semi-finals, somewhat, luckily on Thursday in the Europa League, you could be forgiven for thinking that that was going to be our priority, and it does seem as though Jose Mourinho has targeted that for the prestige of the European trophy over the sort of, ho-hum nature of finishing in 4th place, which Arsenal fans can tell you all about over the last few years. Or, well, I say last few years as if it hasn't been happening every year for the last decade or so, but that's neither here nor there as well. Talking about this game, you could see that we had depth in our squad, and considering how many injuries we've got, especially at centre half, Daley Blind stepped in very capably. I didn't think he had the best performance ever, but he was never really troubled. Eric Bailly obviously was an absolute behemoth at the back once again, really is dominating that position for us, and probably will merit somebody being signed just to partner him, because it doesn't seem like any of the others are on his level, and considering how young he is, that will obviously be something for Mourinho to talk about with Ed Woodward in the summer. But in the game itself, our back four was very rarely troubled, mostly because Mourinho got his tactics spot on once again. He deployed Marouane and Fellaini very well, I have to say. Marouane and Fellaini has been quietly decent for the last month or so. Really has shaken off those early season worries that we were having, and it seems like every time he has a bad performance he gets slated, but when he has a good performance he doesn't really get praised. I'm here praising him. He was deployed by Mourinho to do one thing, and that was just stop the supply into Ashley Barnes. Anybody who's watched Burnley this season knows that that's how they get their chances. They put the ball along to Ashley Barnes, who heads it off, gets the ball out wide, holds the ball up, and then they can put the ball into the box and cause you problems. Because Marouane and Fellaini, all 6'4" of him plus afro, was far too much for Ashley Barnes, Burnley never really threatened us. They had a few pop shots from distance, a couple of defensive errors here and there, almost let them in, but for the most part we were untroubled. And obviously with someone like Eric Bailly at the back, and considering that Eric Bailly, I believe, was the only player to keep his place from the starting 11 against Anderlecht, I think that all the other 3 back 4 positions were changed, so the fact that he was the constant shows exactly how much he has become vital to our plans this season. Pogba was superb once again. Obviously he hasn't been getting the goals and assists that everybody seems to judge players on nowadays, but he was once again very, very good in the game. In the second goal specifically, he did a brilliant job to win the ball back and then found the perfect pass after a really good turn to let Anthony Martial in, and then Rooney managed to somewhat scrappily score his 251st goal for Man United, with the exception of that beautiful free kick he scored against Stoke to mark his 250th goal. All of his goals recently have been a bit scrappy, but he'll take them. They all count, and he's a good predator, and he played decently well today. Got himself booked for dissent, but that's the Wayne Rooney we know and love. But yeah, no, this was a big game. We've got Manchester City coming up away from home on Thursday. It's going to be an awkward game, especially because it looks like Pogba and Bailly may have picked up injuries. Rashford even went down with a knock at one point, so we're really all over the place and stretched very thin. But hopefully those players that were rested today, the likes of Valencia, Luke Shaw, Henrik Mkhitaryan, who came off the bench, Marcus Rashford, who came off the bench, hopefully they will be sharp and ready to go, and we'll be able to cover maybe for the absence of Paul Pogba. Hopefully that was just a minor knock that will be recovered in the next couple of days, but you never know with our luck at the moment. But that game against City is absolutely massive. They're playing in the FA Cup semi-final right now. Last time I checked it was 0-0. Obviously by the time any of you are watching this you'll probably know who went through. Not that it really matters. Manchester City are going to be a very difficult opponent at the Etihad, and it's probably the biggest game of our run-in. I have sort of identified 3 huge away games in our run-in, being Spurs at White Hart Lane, the last match we'll ever play at White Hart Lane by the sounds of things, Arsenal at the Emirates, and obviously this Thursday against Man City at the Etihad. And I sort of think, well, we have to remain unbeaten for the rest of the season. We have to take this, I believe, 23-game unbeaten run that we're on now and extend that to 28 games and take it into next season. Obviously that would be great for momentum for next season, but really just for the practical use of getting into the top 4, we can't afford to be dropping 3 points in any one game. As far as those away games, the Spurs game is going to be the toughest, of course. Spurs are absolutely flying, and by the looks of things we'll be chasing down that title legitimately when we come head to head with them towards the end of the season. Arsenal have looked a bit wobbly, but going away to the Emirates is never easy. We got absolutely spanked there last season, so that's going to be a game that we're going to have to be on our game for. And obviously, again, I come back to this Thursday game at the Etihad, which has the hallmarks of a 0-0 if you ask me. I think Mourinho and Guardiola may just cancel each other out for fear of losing the game. Obviously Guardiola doesn't really know how to defend, but we don't really know how to finish, so that may not be a problem for him. Our biggest issue is going to be keeping them quiet in an attacking sense. Because defensively we've looked very solid, but Man City can open anybody up when they're on good form, so it's going to be a big game. But I think we need, of those 3 games, we're going to need 5 points at the bare minimum. We're going to need to win one of those 3 games to get into the top 4. But if we do get 5 points from those 3 matches and then win the rest of our games, which is a big ask considering that no game is easy in the Premier League, if we do that, I'm fairly confident we'll get top 4. That is by no means a necessity. I fully expect Spurs to really give us a great game at White Hart Lane. I would honestly be surprised if we didn't lose that game. But that being said, Mourinho has proven that when he comes to the big games, he can tactically outmaneuver managers. We have beaten Spurs once already this season, so you never know. We could get more than 5 points in those games. If we do get more than 5 points in those games, barring some calamity in the rest of our fixtures, which isn't out of the realms of possibility, we should definitely finish top 4. And the main reason I want to finish top 4 is just to have an insurance policy so that we don't go into a potential Europa League final if we get past Celta Vigo in the semis. We don't want to go into that game with all of the pressure of the entire season on our shoulders, because that is what happened with Liverpool last year, where they almost abandoned their hopes for the top 4 by drawing lots of home games against smaller teams, went all out for the Europa League and looked, until about half-time in the final, looked like they were going to get a Champions League spot despite finishing 8th in the Premier League. It didn't happen. They got beaten, outclassed completely in the second half by Sevilla, and even if we do get through, we're going to be playing Ajax or Lyon in the final, and that is going to be a tricky game no matter the occasion. But in a European final, that could go absolutely any way, and obviously I'm getting very far ahead of myself. We have to get through Celta Vigo, we have to still finish out the league campaign, but I'm just trying to illustrate the point that it would be a lot better, I think, for our momentum and just for our peace of mind as Manchester United fans, and for the players and Mourinho, of course, if we can secure at least 4th place, which will mean that we're guaranteed at least a playoff round into the Champions League. Because then if we go into the Europa League, the pressure is off. A win will basically give us a trophy that we've never won before and will put us directly into the group stages, which is enough motivation to get us to win the game, but isn't enough pressure to make us crumble under it. Obviously, any big team needs to not crumble under big pressure, but that's what the end of this season is about. That's what the run-in is about. That's what we excelled at under Ferguson, and even to an extent under Van Gaal. We did finish our first season with him quite strongly, and last season we were very close to finishing top 4 despite being extremely indifferent for most of the season. So we can hopefully gather some momentum that we've gotten by winning our past few games and keeping clean sheets. I don't think we've conceded a goal in the Premier League in the Premier League in the month of April. I could be fact checked on that, but I don't think we have. And yeah, 23 games unbeaten, 1 point off top 4, game in hand on Liverpool, who are only 3 points ahead of us. It seems like we can finish this out. We've got an opportunity. We've gotten ourselves into a position to make a run at the end of the season, and that's all I really want to see. I want to see us make that run. Injuries despite, I want to see us make that run. Ibrahimovic and Rojo get my best wishes, but I'm not going to warm up for any of my, intramural soccer games by wearing an Ibrahimovic shirt. That looked a bit weird, but that being said, best wishes to them. We hope that they can come back. Obviously, with Ibrahimovic not having signed an extension yet, it'll be interesting to see if his injury plays a part in whether he signs another deal, because if it's, a long layoff, as in something that's going to go on into next season and perhaps beyond, I don't know if United would be willing to pay his wages for that long, to be perfectly honest, for a player who is probably going to be phased out in the next season at least, or at most I would say he'll get 1 more year. So it's disappointing if this ends up being the end of his United career, but my word, what a season he's had. If his season is over, if his United career is over, all the best to Zlatan Ibrahimovic. But now I've rambled on a bit here. If you've made it to the end of the video, I really appreciate it. Hit a like if you've enjoyed what I've had to say. Comment if you haven't enjoyed what I've had to say and want to, maybe challenge me on anything, especially, fact check me, because I do kind of ramble on without knowing exactly what I'm talking about. And subscribe if you haven't already. I do videos like this after most United games. I'm trying to be better about it, and I'm going to see if I can maybe make some efforts to make the channel a little bit more aesthetically pleasing in the future. So I appreciate you watching. See you next time.